Then out spake brave Horatius, the captain of the gate. To every man upon this earth, death cometh soon or late. And how can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods?
Trig could see the sarcophagus over Tenna's shoulder, but she was determined to block his way, to fight him and keep the action on herself. Trig was having none of this. With each move, he tried to get around Tenna, to blast the Alarium slab with telekinesis. Each time he was stopped cold. Reluctantly, Trig turned to fight his girlfriend. "You know a lot more techniques than when we were at the necropolis together," Trig said. "I was a quick study," Tenna replied. "I had to catch up to Malum." "Let's see if you did." Trig gathered up his willpower and raised another psionic shield as Tenna bombarded him with soul fire. Each blast melted the snow and ice accumulating in the wrecked office. Trig picked up on the sound of gunfire below. Someone was fighting down in the lobby, but Trig could not do anything about it. Tenna was determined to keep attacking, and it was all Trig could do just to keep up a strong defense. "Fight back!" Tenna screamed. "You coward! Fight back!" Trig did not want to hurt Tenna. He knew he would not be able to conjure soul fire right now, as that psionic technique required a great deal of malice and violent intent to work. He would need to find another way to get around Tenna, or subdue her. As another blast rebounded off Trig's shield, he looked down at the gap separating him from Tenna. About 12 feet of floor had collapsed. If Trig augmented himself with psionics, he could safely jump across the gap and be on the same side as Tenna. But she might try to blast him in midair, and she was still wearing the celestial gauntlets. If Trig got within melee range, Tenna would skewer him using the retractable shard blades hidden within the gauntlets. But he needed to cross, needed to reach the sarcophagus. Trig settled on a plan. Keeping his psionic shield up, he started to back away, giving ground. As he slipped into the wrecked offices, Tenna screamed, "Get back here!" She took a few steps toward the edge, conjured psionic lance, and threw it. The construct hit Trig's shield and disintegrated. Trig began to divide his attention. He was going to hit Tenna 2 times in rapid succession. He retreated past the Bring Your Own Batleth sign until Tenna was almost out of view. "Come get me," Trig thought to himself. "Come on, come and get me." Tenna reached the chasm, but did not cross. Trig made his move. Reaching out with telepathic energy, Trig attempted to invade Tenna's mind again. This time, she was ready and tried to resist, but Trig's willpower was stronger. He pushed through her mental defenses and broke into her consciousness. This move only worked because Trig and Tenna had known each other for so long. As soon as she gained access to Tenna's mind, Trig started dumping his own memories about Tenna into Tenna. Determined to overwhelm her, Trig started at the beginning, from the very moment when they had first crashed into each other at the temple ruins. Trig made sure to convey everything he felt in those moments as well. Tenna was forced to relive some of the most intense moments from her own story, as well as a few of the intimate ones. She saw the moment Trig saved her life aboard the starship Resonance Cascade, watching the scene play out from Trig's perspective. She felt the pain of his arm breaking. She saw Trig receive his prophecy from the soothsayer, pilot the Cascade to its improbable victory against the Hualinga, watch Trig free-fall through space during the battle against the Great Khan's flagship. And finally, Tenna witnessed her own rescue through Trig's eyes. A hurricane of emotions caught Tenna off guard. She closed her eyes and tried to clear her thoughts, to force Trig out of her mind. And that was the moment Trig jumped the chasm. Tenna did not realize what was going on until it was too late. Trig got close, so close he could have grabbed her and pulled her into a hug. Instead, Trig pointed one finger at Tenna. At once, a semi-translucent purple sphere materialized around Tenna. She was trapped inside of the bubble, unable to reach out physically or psionically. but Trig could still project his power into the sustaining sphere. Taking full advantage of his handiwork, Trig launched a massive telepathic attack on Tenna, assaulting her mind with every reserve of his own willpower. "Go to sleep," Trig commanded. "Go to sleep!" He was trying to put Tenna under mind control, but he did not know how this technique worked. He didn't even know where to begin. After a few frantic seconds in which Tenna slammed her fists against the inside of her new prison, Trig changed tactic. He blasted Tenna with the most potent mind scorch he could muster. There was one last flicker of defiance in Tenna's eyes, and then she slumped over inside of the bubble, unconscious. Half a second later, Trig lost focus, and the stasis sphere faded away. Tenna collapsed onto the floor. "Shepminter!" a voice called out from below. Trig turned around and spotted Akira Robinson through the wreckage. She was pulling Ushka the Water Witch out of the ruined cafeteria. She was being escorted by Callie and Sebakira, both of whom were covered in snow and looking as though they were nursing injuries. "We've lost track of Malum," Callie reported, "but we've managed to free Vetu, Dak, and Mocha. We're starting on Ushka down here while Blake helps the others." "Tell Akira I've got Tenna up here," Trig shouted, "and I've got the sarcophagus, too." Akira was so surprised she nearly dropped Ushka. "Smash it!" Akira called up to Trig. "Break it! Do something to stop that thing from working!" Trig frantically looked around the destroyed office. He spotted an emergency fire extinguisher propped on a wall next to a coat rack. He grabbed it and ran into the conference room. Raising the fire extinguisher above his head, Trig brought it down on the alarium slab to no effect. "What the fuck is this thing made out of?" Trig gasped. He welled up some willpower and focus, then tried to hit the sarcophagus with telekinetic force. The slab remained unaffected. Trig ran around the wrecked office and retrieved one of the Gauss weapons. He ran back into the conference room one more time, raised the rifle, and shot the sarcophagus. At long last, he did some damage. A small series of cracks radiated out from the bullet hole, but Trig could sense the psionic energy stored within the sarcophagus. Damaging it was not enough. It needed to be destroyed. "I need some help up here," Trig yelled. "What do you need?" Callie called from the floor below. "Guns! Lots of guns!" Trig called back. He looked back at the sarcophagus. Thinking hard, he realized that destroying this thing was a good way to get Malum's attention. Team Marisol now had a way to force Malum to re-enter the fight on their terms. Tenna began to stir, making a groaning sound as she tried to sit up. Trig moved off to knock her out again, but just as he stepped away, something caught his eye. The Khan's throne was located at the head of the sarcophagus. It was the same throne Trig had seen in his own story. Back then, one of Malum's lieutenants was using it, a psionic warrior named Alex Camber. For some reason, Trig felt a strong pull toward the throne. Raising one hand, he hit Tenna with another mind scorch, and as soon as she was dazed again, he moved toward the throne. Trig remembered. It was such a small detail from his own story. He had forgotten it until now. The throne had a secret compartment. One of Malum's former allies had shown it to Trig. Grabbing the right-hand armrest, Trig began to pull. It would not give. Maybe the left armrest. Akira appeared in the hallway, having jumped over the chasm. "We've got a lot of hurt people downstairs," she told Trig. "Blake and Callie want us to regroup. What are you doing? That's just a chair. The sarcophagus is over here." Akira grabbed Tenna and pressed her fingers against the side of Tenna's head. "Oh, shit. We might need a heavy weapon or a bomb to break that," Akira said, looking at the sarcophagus. Trig ignored her. He was pulling at both armrests, wondering why the compartment was not opening. He stopped for a moment, trying to think. Even though a blizzard was raging through the wrecked building, Trig noticed that both the throne and sarcophagus felt very warm to the touch. "Hey, don't gifted people and psionic weapons get hot when they're overused?" Trig asked. "Yeah, that's a pretty common thing," Akira replied. "Why?" "The throne is hot," Trig said. There's heat. Akira looked up from Tenna. Probably a psionic device inside of it, she said. It looks like some Alarium went into building that thing. As soon as Akira said the words psionic device, Trig felt a sense of understanding. Of course, the secret compartment must have a lock that opened to psi energy. Trig took a deep breath and refocused his mind. He tried to listen, to seek out any trace of psionic energy coming from the Khan's throne. He found it right away, underneath the left-hand armrest. No way, Trig said. No freaking way. Trig funneled a small amount of his power into the Khan's throne. It was like trying to feed a piece of string through the eye of a needle. But, after a few attempts, Trig felt the armrest click. He lifted the component away and peered into the little cavity. Cautiously, Trig reached inside. Akira looked up just in time to see Trig retrieve a small cloth bag from inside the throne. It appeared to be very heavy. So heavy, in fact, that when Trig dropped the bag onto the sarcophagus, a huge spiderweb of cracks appeared around the spot where it made impact. Akira's mouth fell open. Holy Mother of Jericho, she breathed. Emily sat cross-legged in front of the broken gate. Conti was perched on her shoulder, wings folded. I can sense your certainty, Conti said. You really can see your world through the gate? Just barely, but I know Pelican Town when I see it, Emily replied. Maybe it's because she was the last creation pulled through, Mina suggested. Mina was further away from the gate. She was holding her boyfriend Kiri at gunpoint, although he was not making any efforts to resist. To stay on the safe side, Conti had placed Kiri under mind control. He was obediently standing under a tree, waiting for new orders. There might be a way to test this idea, Conti said. Hold on. Conti fluttered away from Emily and approached the gate. She closed her eyes and dug her talons into the rocky ground. Emily held her breath. She could feel the vast surge of psionic energy being transferred from Conti into the light stones embedded on the ring. After a moment, Conti let out a deep sigh and drooped her head. That's exhausting, but I think I powered the gate. Slowly at first, then all at once, the glow of the light stones began to overpower the layer of nanites covering them. They stood out in the darkness like little red suns. Emily looked to the east, over the water, but she could not see the city of Stockholm anymore. A snowstorm had overrun the city, somehow making the night seem even darker than before. There's a boat, Emily said. Both Conti and Mina startled. Mina ran to a rocky cliff on the shoreline and peered out. It's Cassandra, Mina reported. Damn it, she's got that freaking specter suit, plus her own psionic powers. We haven't got a prayer. What do we do? Emily asked, unable to keep the fear out of her voice. We are going to fight, Conti said. But you, little Emily, have done enough, and I will not deny you a chance to return home unharmed. Go through the gate now. Go back to Stardew Valley and be happy you won't suffer our fate. Go! Emily looked at Mina. The Higaran woman, who looked more like an elf to Emily, shook her head. Conti's right, Mina said. You don't owe us anything, Emily. You're a victim, like the rest of us. Go home while you can. We'll cover you. Bright blue light caught Emily's attention. Conti was lobbing soul fire into the river, and following up her attacks with psionic lightning. Cassandra was defending herself from the boat. A shimmering telekinetic shield parted the water as she continued advancing toward Rothelman Island. Emily, go! Now's your chance! Mina yelled as she started firing her rifle at Cassandra. Reluctantly, Emily broke from the group. She kept her farewell short. This is where I make my exit. I hope you succeed. Emily ran up to the broken gate. Now that it was fully powered, the light stones illuminated the forest like industrial lamps. Cassandra's nanites were gone. Emily peered into the center of the ring. There was no mistaking it now. Pelican Town, right in the very heart of Stardew Valley, was plainly visible. She could see Blake's farm, the community center, the library, and even the distant mountain. As she approached the gate, Emily felt as though the gate would allow her to reappear anywhere in Stardew Valley she could think of. She did not know where this knowledge came from. Perhaps the gate imparted it on her. A watery explosion distracted Emily. Cassandra was closing in. She turned to the gate. Now Emily could see her own house on Willow Lane, along with her sister Haley, who was pacing in front of it, looking worried. "This gate will let me go anywhere?" Emily asked. No one answered. Emily made up her own mind. She would not abandon Conti and Mina to their fate. If she could not help them fight against Malum, she'd find someone who could. But how? A crashing sound reached Emily's ears. Cassandra had made landfall. Emily cast her mind back. Somehow, Akira had managed to enter Emily's world and pull Emily into the real world without the reality perforator. She had only used the gate. Could Emily do the same? Emily closed her eyes and thought to herself, "I want to go to the world where Blake's most powerful characters live." Stardew Valley vanished from the inside ring of the gate. Several new locations flitted into and out of view, as though the gate was imploring her to make a selection. Even though Emily had only skimmed Blake's stories during the long plane ride across the Atlantic, she somehow managed to recognize these locations, as though the gate was filling in the blanks for her. The mega-city of Partoga, the Angel Moon, the Eye of Iran, the city of Hiroshima, Cape Canaveral, and finally, XCOM's underground base. Emily was looking into the Stormbreaker universe. She screwed up her courage. She knew what she wanted to do, but had no idea how this would work, or even if it would work. "I am a character in a story, a work of fiction," Emily told herself. She forced herself to think about Elliot, a Stardew Valley character who made his living as an author. "I remember what Elliot told me about story structure, about writing the climax. I need something to, how did he say it? Resolve the plot in a surprising way and bring about the happy ending. Writers have a special name for it." Emily opened her eyes and stared into the broken gate. "I want a Deus Ex Machina," Emily declared. A new image appeared in the central ring. It was a volcanic island in the center of a clear, blue lake, which in turn was bordered by steep, jagged cliffs. Just barely visible, a dark-skinned woman could be seen on the island, sitting on a rocky outcrop, enjoying her solitude. Emily stepped through the broken gate and emerged on a historic island in the middle of Crater Lake, Oregon.